Today we got a story of a spoiled brat who gets exposed. This is a super satisfying karma story that I know you'll enjoy. Let's go.
And we're crying, 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 like a wounded animal.
So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Errol, and Errol submitted this to me over on Instagram. So if you want to submit your own story, the link is in the description. We're also on Spotify, by the way. But anyways, right, so this all happened in 6th grade, and at the very end of 6th grade, there was like a very big math exam, and this math exam would basically decide which math class you're going to be put into the next year, and there was a lot of emphasis on doing well on it. I mean, they wanted kids to try because, there were apparently or maybe in theory, if kids wanted to be in an easier class, they just fail this test on purpose as, if you did poorly on the test, then you could be in the easy math class and then you'd have an easier time next year. But the whole idea is that they changed it so that the big math test at the end of the 6th grade year would also have a pretty big impact on your grade. It was like it was a weird mixture of effort-based, but also how well you did. So they're like, all right, good, you need to learn this material, but it also happened to help determine what math class you're. What I'm trying to say is there's a big test at the end of the year. I went into a lot of unnecessary detail that I received. I'm sorry about that. But anyways, right, so we're going to call, Errol. We already named the subscriber, right? They spent probably about 2 weeks before the test in math class because they intentionally finish up all the content that they need to know about 2 weeks before the test actually is, so that they can dedicate that 2 weeks 100% to the test. So anyways, right, they're in a study group, and in this study group they were put into, it was basically at the very first day before the 2 weeks before class, before the end of class, which is also the day of the test, they were put into a study group, and basically the teacher said, hey, you can study on your own, but you have to at least be at the table with your study group. I just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to ask questions to your peers, especially if I can't get around to everyone. So this is pretty good in theory. And in the very first day, he said, you guys actually do need to talk with each other. After that, it's up to you. So the first day, Errol sits down, and the people in his study group are him, some other people, and then the spoiled kid. And obviously, right, he isn't known as the spoiled kid, right? But that's what we're going to call him for the sake of this video, just because it makes it easier on me. I don't have to remember 1,000 names. And the spoiled kid had always kind of gotten everything he ever wanted. Very standard definition for the spoiled kids in my videos, right? So they sit down and they start talking, and basically what Errol starts talking about and the other kids in their group start talking about is basically what is their plan to study for this exam, because they all know that it's very difficult. They also all know that it will take a lot of time and effort to do well with, and they all know that they need to be well prepared. So Errol's going about I'm going to cover chapters 1 through 6 for the first week. Then I'm going to do chapters 7, 8, and 9, and the last couple on the 3 days after that. And then the 3 days before the exam, I'm just going to do a full-on review. And it kind of goes around the circle like that, and people are planning out their study guides or whatever, and asking very basic topics like, is X on the assignment or whatever, and sometimes the teacher would come around and answer it. But the most important detail that you need to know is that the spoiled kid, the one that was, the spoiled kid, the one who was sitting at the group with them, when it kind of went around what are you doing to prepare? The spoiled kid said, I'm not going to prepare. I'm an intellectual genius. Errol kind of just looks at him. And the other kids in the class kind of just look at him. Because no disrespect to the spoiled kid, maybe a little bit, but they've heard him ask questions. And it's good to ask questions. And look, a lot of times in class, I'm asking questions that, sometimes I think back, I'm like, damn, you really were not paying attention if you asked that question. But the spoiled kid was not asking genius level questions, right? He was asking very standard, if not subpar questions. So they were kind of looking at him okay, I guess. And, I don't know about you, but most people that are actually very intelligent don't go around telling everyone, I'm very intelligent. Maybe if they lack a lot of emotional intelligence, they might, but, or just situational understanding and the logic behind that. But anyways, right, they had a few suspicions that the spoiled kid was actually not the reincarnation of Albert Einstein. Just a few sneaking suspicions that might have not been the case, But anyways, though. Oh, by the way, leave a like on this video because today is my birthday, and that will be my birthday present. If you leave a like on this video right now, it's all I ask. It's free. It'll take 1 second. It may or may not help the video. I don't even know at this point. If it does, it's very small. It just looks nice, so go ahead and do that. But anyways, right, so, the Errol's, like, turns to spoil kid after he says, like, I don't even have to try. I'm just literally a genius. And kind of looks at the kid and is like, hey, bro, like, I really think you're going to want to try on this. Like, this is a really big exam. It matters for quite a bit. Little clarification. They actually had, like, 4 or 5 days. There's still, like, a week left of school after the exam. It was kind of just that, like, closing time period where you don't really do a lot. Especially in, like, middle school for me, we had time after our exam. In college, it's, like, your classes end, then you have the exam. But here, it's like you had the exam, then you had, like, kind of a bookkeeping time and just hanging out or whatever. So they still have a bit of class afterwards. That's important for later on in the video. But anyways, Errol goes on to explain, like, dude, like, you're definitely going to want to study for this. Like, this is a pretty big deal. It's gonna be pretty bad if you don't prepare properly. And the spoiled kid doubles down on, like, no, I'm literally just a freaking genius. You guys are idiots. Like, I'm the greatest. You will see. And Errol didn't dislike this kid necessarily, but was also kind of just like, I don't know, man. I'm not doubting you, even though he definitely was. He was kind of just like, I don't know, bro. Like, I really think you should study for this. I just got a feeling that, like, you're going to want to study. And the kid's like, you know what? You guys just don't see it. You don't understand, like, my genius intellect. Like, you guys don't get me. And the thing was, like, Errol wasn't even, like, trying to hate on this kid, even though it was going to be very easy to hate on this kid, especially since he was like, I'm a genius and you guys aren't, and that's the reason why I have to study and you guys don't, or you have to study and I don't. But Errol was like, all right, this kid definitely, like, solved a math problem and was just like, damn, I'm a genius, bro. Anyways, though, the spoiled kid kind of just continues on doing what he's doing. And for the next 2 weeks, Errol and most of his classmates do spend a considerable amount of time preparing for this test. This doesn't mean that they all do as well as they wanted, but they at least all put in a good effort, and the results have at least some correlation to the effort they put in. But let me just give you a little bit of a spoiler. The spoiled kid did not put in any effort over the next 2 weeks. He did not study for a second. He just played on his Xbox all day and kind of just expected that his vastly superior intellect, in quotes, it would just be so strong and so great that it'd be able to guide him to 110% on this exam or whatever, right? Not the case. Anyways, they get into class. It's the day of the exam. Everyone's pretty nervous. And everyone's nervous except the spoiled kid. At least that's the observation Errol makes. And, like, everyone's checking over, like, oh, my God, I only have 6 pencils. What if all 6 of them break? I need a 7th pencil. Someone help. Like, those kind of, like, unnecessary nerves. It's like, you're worried. I mean, necessary. I mean, it's a big exam. You know how that goes. But sure enough, right, they're all standing there, and Errol notices that the only one who isn't super nervous and isn't super freaking out or whatever is the spoiled kid. He is standing there, and he has this almost a smug look of confidence on his face. It is like the strangest thing Errol's ever seen because, I don't know, he knew that he prepared as well as he could, and he did not have the same level of confidence as the spoiled kid. So part of him started to believe, I mean, maybe the kid actually does have a genius intellect. Maybe this kid is actually, like, an absolute baller when it comes to tests, and he doesn't even need to study. I mean, very soon you'll figure out that not the case, but anyways, they go into the test, and Errol happens to sit right behind the spoiled kid, and a lot of it's multiple choice, but a lot of it is also free response. And Errol goes through, and he feels like he does pretty good, and he's kind of routinely checking in with the spoiled kid, almost just to see how well he was doing, just to see how much progress. The spoiled kid very quickly finished the first page. So quickly, in fact, that Errol, in a retrospect, like at the time he didn't notice, but with future details, he now has come to the conclusion, and probably the right conclusion, that the spoiled kid just randomly filled in the bubbles. Because he got, like, the first page done in, like, 15 seconds, which is almost impossible if you don't randomly fill in the bubbles, right? So they get all that stuff done. or he gets the first couple pages done. And when it comes to the actual free response written stuff, by the time Errol is done, the spoiled kid is still on the first page of free response with like nothing written down, like little kind of notes. You know, when you're trying to like approach a problem and you just write a little bit and you're like, no, it's not how I approach this. So you write a little bit of something else and you're like, no, I can't do this either. That's basically all the spoiled kid did. And, Errol was able to, Errol left the exam with still like 30 minutes to go because, he looked over his work and he finished. So he's like, well, maybe the spoiled kid picks it up in the second half or whatever. And he has a Hail Mary, like amazing comeback. And, there's still a chance that he'll do pretty well. So they get the weekend, but they get their grades back on Monday. So they all walk into class and they sit down. And the teacher basically hands them a little slip of paper. And on that slip of paper is your grade and also the math class that you'll be in next year. Yeah, sounds a little demeaning. It's like, oh, you did bad, you're going to be in a poor math class. But the teacher also said, it's partly what you requested because you were able to request which math class you wanted to be in. And he said partly how you did throughout the year and partly how you did on this exam. Because this exam is somewhat a reflection of how you did throughout the year and your overall, are you going to do well in a higher level versus a lower level math class is what it adds up to be, right? So the teacher hands around the paper and, Errol did pretty well and he ended up in a math class that he felt pretty happy with or pretty comfortable with. I don't think he'd be happy if he was in a math class higher than he thought he should be or lower because he wants to be, somewhat challenged. He wants, it's easier with like colleges and stuff or whatever, right? And, he looks around and the spoiled kid, he can't see what's on the spoiled kid's piece of paper because sometimes you're able to like look over, you can kind of get a sense of what's on like someone's, it's not great to do, but, don't lie, man. Like you've definitely like kind of taken a little quick glance around, right? Just like, oh, okay, I'll look over here and, oh, I just happened to see what that person got. Oh no, they did not do well. Now I feel better about myself. We've all been there. It's not a good thing to do, but it happens. But Errol was not able to see what was on this kid's paper because he very quickly flipped over and flipped it back almost immediately. So Errol kind of assumed that he did terrible. And he was like, okay, well, kid didn't study and he just did not do well. Okay, that's fine. That makes a lot of sense. However, at lunch, and remember, this was kind of more of a chill part. Like this was more of a chill couple days because all the exams and tests were done at this point. It was almost like a celebratory week. So they were all at lunch, and the spoiled kid happens to sit down with Errol and some of his friends. And the spoiled kid's like, man, like, Errol, how did you do on that exam? Errol in this position thinks like, oh, well, this kid probably didn't do that well. And, whatever, like, I'll tell him. He's like, yeah, I got an 88 on the exam, which that was pretty good. It was a hard exam, and an 88 is a very solid grade. And the spoiled kid's like, only an 88? Are you serious, bro? You only got an 88? Dude, I got 100%. And Errol in his head is like, there's no way. And the spoiled kid's like, yeah, dude, and guess what? I didn't even study for a second. And you studied probably for hours and hours. And I got 100 and you got an 88. So work smarter, not faster, bro. Which is like a good expression for some things. But this kid definitely just heard it somewhere and was like, I'm going to work smarter because I'm a genius. And this kid's an idiot, so take the L. And Errol was like, oh, okay, bud. Like, that's cool for you. Like, whatever, right? And for the next couple days, this happens in class. This happens like all over the place. The spoiled kid is relentlessly bragging about the fact that he got 100% because of his genius intellect. And he made the mistake to brag about this in front of the teacher that assigned the test, right? He was sitting in a group, and Errol wasn't in this group, but he was in one group like behind them, so he could hear everything that was going on. And the spoiled kid was like, yeah, so I didn't even study for that exam, and I got a 100%. And the guy's like, dude, that's crazy. Like, I didn't do so hot. Like, I got a 70-something. Which, 70-something isn't the greatest grade, but it's not like he failed or something, right? And the spoiled kid's like, dude, I didn't even need to study, and I got 100. And you spent in all this time, and you didn't even get above an 80. Like, oh, my God, bro. Like, it must suck being you. Like, I bet you wish you were me. And the thing was, right, very cruel statement, especially from a kid who did not do as well as he was leading on. Spoiler, the spoiled kid did pretty bad. I'm not going to tell you the exact answer until the very end, but the fact that he's not, like, I get it, you feel bad about how you did on the exam, but don't be coming for other people. Like, that's where we draw the line. It's like, okay, you can feel uncomfortable with how you did, but we're drawing the line there, bro. Like, come on now, you can't be doing that. And the teacher overheard this. And Errol didn't really notice these things until retrospect. For example, the kid spamming through the questions, multiple choice, doing them randomly. Errol didn't really notice this until he learned exactly what the kid got as a grade. Also, the teacher noticing that, Errol's like bragging about, or the spoiled kid's bragging about how well he did. The teacher didn't notice this. Errol didn't notice the teacher was noticing this really until after, and he put all the pieces together when the teacher accidentally exposes him, which I'll show you. And okay, I did like air quotes around accidentally, but I just remembered that you guys can't see me, so I did air quotes around the accidental part, as you guys will see in a second. So the teacher's listening to the spoiled kid basically berate this kid for like, you're an idiot, I'm a genius, take the L, Fortnite dance, whatever, right? And the teacher's like, oh, all right, class, well, let's just put on a movie, right? Let's put on something, just have a nice relaxing rest of your day. And the teacher airplays his screen. And when the screen goes up there, it's not the movie on the screen. In fact, it is something else besides the movie. It is a profile of a student. So basically, with their grading software, yes, you can see it in aggregate where you see everyone's grades, but you can also click on an individual student, right? And it'll show like what their average grade is, what math class they're going in, and also how well they did on the final assessment. And you know who the teacher accidentally showed on the screen for like 5 or 10 seconds before fixing it? Oh yeah, this was an accident, right? He showed the spoiled kid. The spoiled kid's grade was put on the screen. Was this on purpose? The truth is, Errol doesn't really know, but he doesn't think that it was a coincidence. And if it wasn't a coincidence, kind of a savage move by the teacher. Like, I'm not going to lie, a little harsh, but kid kind of did deserve it, right? Kid really did deserve it there. So on the screen, you saw a spoiled kid's name, and you saw what he actually got on the final test. Spoiler, it was not the 100% from his genius intellect that he was telling everyone. In fact, it was a 32%. And look, if you got a 32% on a test before, it feels bad, man. So I'm not coming for you. But I will be coming for you if you go around telling people that you got 100 and that you're a genius and that everyone else is an idiot because they studied and you didn't have to study at all. That's where I draw the line. At that exact very situation, I draw the line. But yeah, so everyone looks like, not everyone sees it, but the kids that were sitting with the spoiled kid, who the spoiled kid was berating, saw it. Errol saw it, and the teacher's like, oh, my fault, and he quickly switches over to, like, Netflix to put on, like, a documentary or something. And the kid, like, Errol just has this big old grin on his face. Not because he wants someone to do poorly, but because he's just like, okay, this kid came for me yesterday because I got a good grade and I studied, but his grade was supposedly better and he didn't study. And he was saying how he was such a genius and I wasn't. And now look at who's the genius now. Neither of us, but especially not him. And the kid in front that, like, didn't do so well and the spoiled kid was berating, literally just, like, turned to the spoiled kid and was like, genius, huh? And the spoiled kid, his face was bright red. He was not responding to the kid in front of him at all. And the kid in front of him was like, oh, no, genius, right? You were talking about how you're a genius and you didn't have to study and how you got 100, and how I'm an idiot. And I studied and even got a 40 or 70 or whatever. The spoiled kid at this point is bright red like a cherry. And he runs out of the classroom and says, I have to go to the bathroom very quickly to the teacher. And sprints out of that classroom. And yeah, it was a little bit of a tough lesson. But bro, at the end of the day, that's a life lesson. Hopefully that kid will remember that for a very long time. A little thing about being humble, and also, if you lie, it can come back to bite you. Like, that's just something that can happen. So yeah, the spoiled kid did not get 100%, and he's not the next Einstein, the reincarnation of Einstein, believe it or not.
Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click it, do it.